Greetings. My name is Erwin McMath. This is the final for Sociology 324, a video I'm making for the Sociology of Crime and Violence, July 31st, 2016. The issue that I'd like to address is police militarization. The ultimate goal is to analyze the many variables that make up this complex and sensitive subject. Using academic and peer-reviewed source material will aid in peeling back the layers that this issue is made of. Non-biased research will help develop a position so that strategies can be made in solving the detriments of police militarization as well as determining the benefits. The following evidence will be examined. Local democratic oversight of police militarization from the Harvard Law and Policy Review by K. Dansky. Militarization of school police, one route on the school-to-prison pipeline, comes from the Arkansas Law Review from B.J. Peak. The green to blue pipeline, defense contractors and the police industrial complex from the Cardozo Law Review from K. Rahal. Also, global insecurity, how risk theory gave rise to global police militarization. This comes to us from Indiana Journal of Global Legal Studies by N.S. Bolduc. And one news article, The Lessons of Ferguson, and this comes from the Globe and Mail out of Toronto, Canada. These sources will shed light on the people, places, and situations linked to police militarization. The functionalist theory will be applied to this issue in order to establish a non-biased and systematic approach. Use of social science theory provides a framework or template to help organize information and interpret the findings I come across. Our statement is clear and simple. We aim to create a transparent picture of what police militarization is and how it affects society. This project will conduct research in a non-biased effort, and only after this is complete will a position be established. Ethical standards and attention to the human element are paramount. To start off with the position, in addressing the issue of police militarization, it's important to uncover and reveal the data collected regarding this issue. The following variables, components, and applied social theories will help us guide towards a broader understanding of police militarization and what positions should be taken. Identifying stereotypes can help trim the fat and get to the core of the issue, although the issue of police militarization is flush with stereotypes and should be addressed as an important part of the issue. Stereotypes can create an unfair bias when analyzing social issues, but we should also pay special attention to how stereotypes are connected to the issue and the social context. Stereotypes in regard to police militarization are observed in how media reports events and how they are perceived by the public. Media reports that flash images of police in riot gear or manning armored personnel carriers may cause a public to jump to a conclusion. Perhaps some people might feel that police militarization is a direct response to the issue that is most important to them and does not take into account that police militarization exists for other reasons as well. Providing a backstory and context for the existence of police militarization could help the public perception and dismiss damaging stereotypes. Social change is witnessed within the issue of police militarization. Social media sites such as Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram can provide immediate reports of police militarization, and cause swift social reaction and change. For example, Posting an up-to-date report of protests can mobilize thousands of people in an instant. Instead of a typical media report doing a follow-up or describing an event that's already peaked, social media provides a narrative of what's happening right now and allows followers to become a part of the story. When reports of police militarization pop up, people can respond quickly and in some cases take the issue personally. So again, perception is created and response time is shorter. Imagine the protests and demonstrations of the 1960s during the Civil Rights Movement, coupled with the power of social media. Access to instant, updated information can spawn social change. A real-world observation is a response to the events that unfolded in Ferguson, Missouri. Protests brought forward the issue of race relations in this community. What we witness here is police militarization connected to other issues that are attempting social awareness and display a desire for social change. And that comes to us from the news report source, Globe and Mail out of Toronto. They also report, and I quote, "In death, 18-year-old Michael Brown has become a rallying point, even a metaphor, for broader grievances over racial profiling, the militarization of police, and the absence of minorities in positions of power. The fury in this corner of Missouri sparked clashes and peaceful vigils, while social media proved itself a powerful venue for protest." End quote. When identifying modern interpretations of police militarization, a definition should be established. According to the Cardozo Law Review, police militarization is defined as the use of hardware and tactics that are consistent with military-grade materials and concepts. Specific attention should be paid to programs 1033, which describe transfer of military equipment to local law enforcement agencies, as well as program 1122, which provides the means for the purchase of new equipment that is considered military grade. B.J. Peake defines militarization as, quote, "a set of beliefs and values that stress the use of force and domination as appropriate means to solve problems and gain political power, while glorifying the tools to accomplish this, military power, hardware, and technology," end quote. Some of the modern interpretations of police militarization uncovered reports of police militarization in some of our schools and the effects seen from this situation. Peake explains that schools have created police departments of their own, and a specific example is the safety division in the public schools in New York City. If the safety divisions of these public schools were an actual police department, it would be the 5th largest police force in the nation. This report goes on to explain such details as, I quote, "armed police, metal detectors, and pat-downs in some schools," end quote. Specifically in Compton Unified School District, assault rifles are authorized. The significance of this type of military posturing is reflected in the rise of disciplinary incidences, as well as the development of a school-to-prison pipeline. The view here is that continued militarization of schools creates a situation where students are stigmatized with a criminal record before even reaching adulthood. An individual with a criminal record has significant disadvantages in reaching his or her full potential. Another interpretation of police militarization is described by Nicholas Bolduc. Bolduc's report entitled "Global Insecurity: How Risk Theory Gave Rise to Global Police Militarization" describes police militarization as a global issue and explores the concept of risk society. Bolduc states, and I quote, "Societies today view risk through a futuristic lens," end quote. Governments seeking to control their destiny and political power feel they must employ the necessary hardware to secure a manageable future. This assertion connects to previous quoted material from B.J. Peake, and I quote again, "Use of force and domination as appropriate means to solve problems and gain political power. End quote. Another important point brought up is the impact from the 2008 financial crisis, a cultural event that depleted local law enforcement funds while at the same time the Pentagon still maintained equipment supplies to those local law enforcement agencies. Here we see the direct connection from higher government institutions and lower level law enforcement institutions. So there we have it. Connections to the financial institutions, federal institutions, and a further trickling down to local agencies. From the evidence used here, we can observe a common theme in the modern use of police militarization. This theme is protecting the establishment, maintaining political power, and doing so with the use of militarized weapons and tactics. Governments are simply attempting to control certain situations by deploying force. But what perception is that creating? Is it wise to create social unsettling and risk further complications? These are important questions to consider. When examining the issue of police militarization, an understanding of its history can draw connections to the social context in which it was used. We can research the history and attempt to identify the patterns associated with the issue of police militarization. Karina Rahal from the Cardozo Law Review reports in her paper, The Green to Blue Pipeline, Defense Contractors and the Police Industrial Complex. Rahal explains that early use of police militarization in America can be observed in reports of Special Weapons and Tactics, SWAT teams, developed by the LAPD in the late 1960s. The use of SWAT teams was in response to riots, terrorism, and the buildup of the war on drugs. Rahal goes on to explain that since the 1980s, there has been a 1,400% increase in SWAT team usage. The Green to Blue Pipeline report argues that police see a necessity in militarization to deal with violent situations as they occur. It also speculates that federal influence on local law enforcement agencies are unchecked, and militarizing police is the negative side effect of government oversight. Rahal states, and I quote, approximately 59% of police departments serving populations of 50,000 people or more had SWAT teams in 1982. But by the mid-1990s, that number had reached 89%. This expansion is not limited to large cities. Currently, 80% of towns with populations below 50,000 have some sort of paramilitary tactical team, while only 20% of them had in 1980. Between 1980 and 2000, there was a 1,400% increase in SWAT deployments. So while the hardware and tactical methodology associated with paramilitary policing has existed since the 1960s, the expansion and escalation of these units has increased primarily in response to the wars on drugs and terrorism. End quote. The functionalist theory is perfect to apply to the issue of police militarization. This theory analyzes the relationship between the different institutions of society and how they are affected by each other. In the case of police militarization, we can observe its existence in the institutions of government, education, law enforcement, and media, just to name a few. These institutions have direct impacts on the quality of life of citizens, and it's no wonder that the use of militarized equipment and tactics are used on citizens who are protesting. Ethical challenges that are presented during the use of militarized police are important to consider because of the human element involved. The questions that should be asked are when is it appropriate to use police in a militarized fashion? What are the positive and negative effects of this use? How would more information on the use of militarized police benefit perception? Let me say that again. How would more information on the use of militarized police affect the public perception? One of the stakeholders in this issue are the general public, as they are the ones who become victimized and restrained by police militarization forces. A well-informed public should be able to distinguish between necessary force and excessive force. Police are a stakeholder in this issue because their existence may rely on the funding provided by federal grants and distribution of equipment. Law enforcement agencies must realize the implications of using militarized force and the perception it creates. Key points of police militarization include the basic understanding of what militarization means, where it comes from, how it's used, what perception it creates in the general public, and how other institutions in society are affected by it. Possible solutions to the use of police militarization should be considered as well. A well-informed public should remain a priority. Understanding the origins and modern uses of police militarization can help develop transparency so that the public perception doesn't create stereotypes and false reports. A public relations department would be wise to explain situations where police militarization is needed and reassure citizens that police are aware of their concerns. Local law enforcement and federal agencies should rethink the distribution of military-grade equipment as well, understanding that public perception can create a negative and possibly violent reaction could be prevented by open communications with city councils and citizen groups. The final position on the issue of police militarization is the promotion of transparency. The use of police militarization is a political tool the use of police militarization is a political tool that the government is using. Law enforcement officials deserve protection when their duties include encountering violence. On the other hand, citizens have rights, and practicing those rights should include calling into question police use of militarized equipment. The issue does not seem to be going away, but rather increasing, so a checks and balances system should be created. Again, transparency and communication should be used extensively to monitor the use of police militarization. A constant evolution of determining when and where police militarization will be tolerated and will serve interests of the citizens and government. After all, the government should be working for us.